All right, welcome everybody. My name is Melinda Brooks. I am the Communications Chair for the National Association for Court Management. You're at our Budget and Finance session. That is a core champion session that Whitney will be talking about. But while everybody's joining us and getting situated, I'm going to share just a few quick slides about NACM, and then we'll hand it over to our presenter. All righty. So first, we want to welcome you. We appreciate you joining us and taking part of this webinar. I'm just going to show a few slides about the association. This is a cover page of our website, and I just welcome you if you want more information about NACM, that's a great place to find good information. We are working on updating it a bit, so you might see some changes over the next many months, but that's a good place to start. The membership, having a membership to NACM has many different benefits. You have access to our publications, which are the Court Express, which is a newsletter format, and the Court Manager, which is more of a journal with more in-depth articles. As a NACM member, you have opportunities for one-on-one mentorship from experienced court professionals. You get to join a community of court professionals from around the world where you can discuss emerging issues within the courts. You gain opportunities to serve on NACM committees with other colleagues in the field and even engage with the NACM board. And you also get discounted registration rates for the NACM conferences, as well as access to scholarships. So we do have a couple great conferences coming up. In March, we have our mid-year conference in Albuquerque. And then in Jacksonville, in July 12th through the 16th will be our annual conference. And lastly, I'll just say that NACM has worked hard in the last year or two to have more of a presence on social media. So we have platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you'd like to keep up to speed on what we're doing, those are good places to start. And also, if you do become more engaged with us in association, we are trying to get the word out. So if you're able to share some of these, anything of interest with your other court colleagues or even your state associations, I think that would be a great way to get engaged. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Whitney Blyton, who currently serves as the membership chair for NACM. She holds an MBA and business certificates from Stanford and Harvard, and works for Clark County Superior Court as a senior management analyst. So thank you, Whitney, for this. And I'm just going to be in the background if you need anything.
Thank you, Melinda. And everyone, before we get started, we have the chat feature open. So if there's any questions along the way, please put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them as we go. Or if we don't, we'll hit them on the back end. And with that, we'll get started. We just... Okay, hopefully everyone can see this okay.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so this is Justice by the Numbers, budget basics for every court. We're going to begin with a deceptively simple question: what's important to you? It's broad, but it's also the beginning of every good story. And budget and fiscal management is at its core a storytelling discipline. It's how we translate values into action and prioritize into plans and vision into reality. So I want to share two truths that frame our time together. You do important work. To do that well, you need financial skills, whether you're advocating for access to justice, improving court operations, or leading change in your community. Your story runs on resources, and that's why the competency matters so deeply. NACM has developed a powerful framework, the NACM Core, that outlines the essential competencies for court leaders. There are 13 in total, and budget and fiscal management is one of them. I'd argue it's among the most critical because nearly every court's due, from staffing to technology to public service, requires funding. And funding requires strategy, clarity, and yes, storytelling. So these are the topics we're going to cover today. We're going to do draft your budget, budget types, separate needs from wants, budget approaches, spending with purpose, review and adjust record regularly, and we'll review the NACM core at the end. So I hope you go to the NACM core to read the entire competency. The content is broad and extensive, so our discussion will be a summary. We have a limited amount of time today, and this could be a full course with all the information that is included with court finances. We do want to expose you to the entire process and pertinent information. So our learning objectives, we're going to become familiar with the budget and fiscal management competency, become familiar with accounting terms, become exposed to the entire budgeting process from inception to drafting the internal review, to presentation, to managing within your budget. The court is an entity. It is accountable to the public and funding authorities for its use of public and private funds. The court also shares with the private business sector many financial practices, such as securing funding, income, budgeting accounts receivable, payable management, facilities management, technology management, and personnel expenses, among many others. Court managers need to possess the skills necessary to balance all these responsibilities to ensure that the court can function effectively and efficiently so that it can provide equal access to justice to public without undue delay or interruption of services. The budgeting process doesn't just include drafting a budget, but also managing your budget, and it also includes budget cuts and amendments. Familiarization of accounting principles and concepts is very important and could be its own course. Information can be found from Governmental Financial Officers Association, also known as the GFAOA. Okay, how does budgeting relate needs from wants? Court budgets, we fund the goals and objectives of the court. A budget is a plan that matches resources, also known as revenues, with our needs, expenses. So where do we start? We start with our goals and objectives of the court. If that is your priority, then budget first and think of all the necessary components to achieve that goal. If the goal is adequate staff for community, what does that include? Staff, supplies, interpreters, technology, court reporting, computers, video capability. These are all building items to start your objectives with your goals. So plan it out and then cut down to match your resources or know your need to request more funds. You may not be able to achieve your budget for all your goals. So what are your priorities? You might need to ask administration their priorities. And always, your budget should be balanced. Revenues and expenditures should equal revenues, and revenues should exceed expenditures. So we're going to draft a realistic budget. A budget is more than numbers, and it's a story. It provides fiscal control, it shares key financial information, and clearly outlines how public funds will be used. When shaped through storytelling, a budget connects dollars to purpose, helping stakeholders understand not what's being funded, but why it matters. And when we talk about a budget, we're not just crunching numbers, we're really telling a story. It's a narrative that explains how we manage resources, what priorities we're investing in, and how those choices impact our community. A well-crafted budget doesn't just show where the money goes, it reveals the why behind every dollar. It's a tool for transparency, accountability, and connection, helping everyone from decision makers to the public see the bigger picture and understand the values driving our financial decisions. A budget is necessary because it connects the dollars to a purpose and outlines how public funds will be used. Can you guys think of another reason why a budget is necessary? Maybe it's proper planning. What's your guys' role in the budget process? Who gives your funding to you? Do you have spending restrictions? Do you have to ask permission prior to spending? All those factors are essential when you're drafting a realistic budget and going through how you need to prepare. So we're drafting a realistic story, and I took this from my Stanford class, Mastering the Art of Storytelling. and it's really made an impact on the way I draft budgets. And one of my favorite little quotes I found about this is, "Tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me a truth and I'll believe, but tell me your story and will live in my heart forever." So here are some budgeting storytelling tips for impactful drafting. So you first want to open with a scene. Start your budget narrative with a vivid moment, or perhaps a busy courtroom, a breakthrough program, or a challenge that you overcame. Make it real and relatable from the first sentence. Focus on one story. Don't try to cover everything. Choose a single powerful example that shows why your funding requests matter. A well-told story can be a list of accomplishments, and structure matters. Every budget story should have a beginning, the need, middle, the action, and the end, the outcome. You can play with the order, but start with a dramatic open that will explain, but make sure all the parts are there. And keep it tight. Avoid drowning your audience in data, which can be easy to do in budget requests. Use just enough detail to support your point and save the deep dive for your backup material. And speak plainly, use clear conversational language. Your story should sound like you, not a legal brief or a thesaurus entry. And use vivid language. Make your writing engaging. Budget narratives can be compelling when they're well told and show emotion through action. Instead of saying, "This was stressful," describe the moment. "We had 200 cases and only 2 staff members." And deliver with intention. Whether written or spoken, pace your delivery. Emphasize key points. Let your story breathe. Challenge assumptions. Use your story to shift perspectives. What do people misunderstand about your coursework? And flip the script. Use analogies. Comparing your big budget challenge to something unexpected, like running a marathon with one shoe, and it can make your story memorable. And use contrast. Highlight the difference between what you have and what you need, or between past and future outcomes, and most importantly, stay respectful. Never minimize other struggles to elevate your own. And with growth, your story should show progress, how your court is improving, adapting, and delivering more value with the right support. Almost as important as what you say is who you're talking with. What does your audience care about? Why should they care? What is your goal, and is there a call to action? So here is an example story. On a rainy Tuesday, Maria stepped into courtroom 3B, clutching a folder of rent receipts and a notice to vacate. Her children waited outside with backpacks, unaware that today's hearing could decide whether they'd sleep in their own beds or a shelter. The judge glanced at the 42-item docket. It's scheduled before noon, and Maria was number 17. This is the moment our eviction program was built for. We don't just process cases, we intervene. That morning, our staff attorney met with Maria in the hallway, reviewed her documents, and discovered a critical error in the landlord's filing. By noon, Maria's case was dismissed. Her children went back to school, and her home was safe for now. But here's the truth. We had 200 cases last month and only 2 staff members. That's like trying to plug a dam with a teaspoon. Our eviction program provides legal triage, emergency rental assistant coordination, and housing navigation. We don't just delay displacement, we prevent it. But the need is outpacing our capacity. Without additional funding, we'll be forced to turn away families like Maria's. Not because they don't qualify, but because we don't have the staff to meet them at the door. We're requesting $350,000 to expand our team, extend our hours, and deepen our impact. With this support, we can double our reach, reduce court congestion, and stabilize hundreds of households. And this isn't just a budget line, it's a lifeline. People often assume eviction is a personal failure, but the reality is more complex. A missed paycheck, a medical emergency, or a rent hike can unravel stability. Our program flips the script. We treat eviction as a solvable crisis, not an inevitable outcome. We've grown from a pilot project to a cornerstone of housing justice in our community, and with the right investment, we'll continue adapting, improving, and delivering more value, not to just those we serve, but to the systems we support. We invite you to stand with us, fund the fight against displacement, and help us turn courtroom 3B from a place of fear into a place of hope. And I'm sure there's so many stories that you guys can share from just one example and turn it into a wonderful storytelling drafted masterpiece. So we're going to move to the types of budgets. We have operation budget, our project budget, and our capital budget. The most common with courts are operational budget, and these include daily operations, staff, building items, technology, all of those things. In our project budget, it could be a grant or a special project budget only for a certain project or program. And lastly, our capital budget. Our capital budget is purchasing things for our building, renovation, and it's a process businesses use to evaluate potential major projects or investments. Budget for expenditures resulting in the acquisition or addition of the court's tangible assets such as buildings, equipment, technology, etc. So we'll dive deeper into the operational budget. Our operational budget is general budget, which includes things we already discussed, things for running the court. And it includes our salaries and benefits, supplies, travel, equipment. And the budget is not just project specific, it's general in nature. So the operational budget may be comprised of several funds. For example, there may be separate funds for judges, court administration, case management, or court technology. Ours, we use ledger accounts. The operational budget should incorporate estimates for salary and benefits, supplies, equipment, leases, professional service, travel, training, contractor service, and it could go on. So what are some things to consider when you're preparing an operational budget? What are some of your general reoccurring expenses? What do you need for daily operation? Are costs going up? How will you estimate the cost of what you need and want? Are there any equipment refresh plans? Is it time to replace computers? What other equipment needs to be replaced? Digital recording, printers, copiers? Is there a maintenance schedule? Should you replace carpet or paint during this budget year? What needs to be fixed? And for capital, are you renovating? Are you have any major systems near and the end of life? And then lastly, budget cuts. Are we asked to cut from funds from categories? Our project budget. This is specific to a certain area, project, or grant. So you might have a specialty court budget. States might be rolling out grants related to new laws that were just imposed. And a project budget could be just kind of a special funding budget bucket. So what type of expenses are included in specialty court budget? Courts have special projects from time to time, a pilot for online dispute resolution, virtual remote interpreting, or smart forms could be requested in project budgets. After completion of these projects, these pilots may become separate funds within the operating budget, or they could permanently remain project budgets. So what kind of project budgets have you guys seen? Capital budget. This is our budget for expenditures to acquire tangible assets such as buildings, equipment, and technology. So capital budgets may not be part of every court's budget. Capital budgets may be part of the funding authority's budget or the budget of the state administrative office of the court. A sizable building renovation or construction of a new courthouse could be funded in a capital budget. So what other are types of capital budgets? Computer servers, equipment to handle remote proceedings, a new case management system, or a broad-scale furniture replacement. Those are all examples of capital budget items. So we have, moving into budgeting approaches, we have zero-based budgeting, program-based budgeting, or baseline budgeting. So a zero-based budgeting is starting fresh every year. Your budget has nothing in each category. And our program-based budgeting starts with previous year budget amount and is adjusted for program changes. Each department or program has its own budget. Successful programs or departments are be able to giving additional funding, or unsuccessful programs could be decreased. It's kind of similar to project budgeting. Lastly, and what I'm most familiar with is baseline budgeting, and this starts with our figures that we had from previous years, and it's adjusted for increased cost or increase for special projects or grants. So our revenue sources, our typical court revenue sources, they are our general fund revenue, our state or local funds. Some of us have fines, filing fees, user fees, and grants. On a personal level, you must have revenue in the form of a paycheck, right? To pay for food, insurance, etc. Similarly, a court must have revenue to cover expenditures. And our general revenue usually is a transfer from the funding authority to balance your budget. Most courts aren't self-funding, so local or state governments provide money to the court to generate on its own. What fines do your courts access to generate revenue? And courts aren't typically a revenue species, but we do have ways to increase our revenue. So with speeding tickets, parking violations, are we seeing an increase in civil and family cases on our filing fees? What users fees do you impose on mediation or online dispute resolution, recordings of court events? And grants are a major source of revenue for courts. Most of us are familiar with drug court grants or grants that are passed in legislation to help us get kickstarted. And grants may be large or small, but they may target a rising issue in court. Another one we're seeing as a hot topic is our security grants. And so our revenue projecting. These are our methods. We have economic forecast, caseload analysis, trend analysis, or regression analysis. So don't worry, we're not going to go too heavy into those today. We're just going to talk about them at a high level. So our courts need to estimate how much money they'll bring in so they can plan for their budget. And one big factor in that is the economy. For example, during tough economic times, we've seen more shoplifting cases, and that leads to more fines and court fees, which increase revenue. On the flip side, when the economy is strong, people are much more likely to keep up with child support payments, which may also affect court revenue. Many types of cases bring in money, so looking at your case trends can help you predict future revenue. What do you see? What do you estimate how many cases you'll see? It's also helpful to track how different revenue sources are changing. Is mediation bringing in more money? Are filing fees for tech services going up and down? And don't forget, if your funding agency is facing a tight budget, they may cut back on the money they give you. One tool you can use is regression analysis. It looks at revenue patterns over several years and uses a formula to predict future income. That forecast becomes part of your budget planning. And that with the help of AI in Excel, regression analysis is actually quite a breeze. And we're going to spend with purpose. So assessment of our needs. What do we need? Do we need future courthouse improvement, technology enhancements, new judgeships, infrastructure improvements, implementing a new special program? And does your court have a strategic plan that considers future needs? How does the court administrator know how to plan in the future budget? There are long-term impacts, so it may take years to get the budget ready for renovation or new judgeship or large technology change. Does your administration discuss annually, or are their future needs determined by someone else? For example, in Washington, our county runs annually on January to December, but our state runs June to July. So if we needed to figure out a new judge, we would have to plan for it for the next biennium because they're on a 2-year cycle and we're on an annual. So we have to prepare now if we want to get it heard for 3 years down the road. So our operating expenditures, we kind of already talked about this. This is our personnel, our contracts, interpreters, repairs, equipment, travel training, telephone, office supplies, security, utilities, and our furniture. And we'll talk about the cost of running a court because budgeting isn't just about revenue. It's also about understanding your expenses. So when estimating expense costs, be sure to account for inflation or tariffs. Prices go up over time. That affects everything from supplies to services. If you have contracts coming up for renewal, check whether rates are increasing or if there's an opportunity to negotiate better terms. Looking at projected costs for the upcoming budget period helps you determine how much funding you'll need. Compare your estimate to last year's actuals and don't forget to ask vendors if they expect any price changes. Excuse me, personnel costs are a big part of the budget. If there are raises or benefit increases aren't planned for, it's tough to catch up later. So make sure those adjustments are built into your projections. And if you're planning to expand services, whether it's adding new programs, staff, space, or equipment, be sure to fully anticipate the cost impact. And every initiative comes with a price tag. And it's better to plan ahead than scramble later. Defending a budget, unfortunately, it's a normal part of the budget process, and it is taxing. When presenting a budget, the court spokesperson should present a well-organized request with all essential information. So it just doesn't start at the podium. It begins long before the formal presentation. It requires thoughtful preparation, thinking of questions maybe council members might have, strategic relationship building, and a compelling narrative or story that connects your coursework to the community it serves. So start with informal contact. How do we build relationships with staff and your funding authority, and if possible with elected officials? It's far easier to secure funding from people who know you and understand your mission than from distant acquaintances. A short email, a quick phone call, coffee break before work, or lunch together can go a long way. Invite them to the courthouse on a busy day. Let them see firsthand how their support translates into public service. These moments are the foundation of your story. Next, conduct an internal review. Your budget team and presiding judges should vet the document for accuracy, clarity, and persuasive impact. Does it flow well? Is it the right length? Are the justifications strong and easy to follow? Your budget document should look professional and include a concise executive summary. It must clearly communicate your needs and make a convincing case for funding. Include all request backup materials. Transparency builds trust. Prepare support materials that aren't submitted with the budget but are essential for answering questions. These might include your revenue forecasting methods, calculations behind requested amounts, caseload statistics, and breakdowns of expenditures. Organized, thorough materials show you've done your homework. So more on defending the budget. When requesting funding, it's not enough to say, we're a court, so we need money. That won't resonate. You need to clearly explain why the funding is necessary and show that your court is responsible steward of public resources, one that delivers on its missions and goals. Use data to demonstrate how your court has met its objectives. Highlight the impact of your work, how court programs and interventions reduce costs for the county, state, and community by preventing larger issues, whether that's reducing recidivism, improving compliance, or streamlining case resolution. Think about how your court creates savings. What are your examples? So just like now, we're going to start with a high-level summary of your funding needs. This isn't the time for line item details. That comes later in the full budget document. Right now, you're telling the story of your request. Managing budget cuts. Reduce, remake, and remove strategies. Reduce, trim a little from each budget and nick and tuck. Remake, change the processes to save money. Rearrange the deck chairs. remove major reductions to operations, and throw the deck chairs overboard. So budget cuts are a reality, and the court managers often face limited options when they hit. That's why planning for financial stress should happen before a crisis, not during one. To manage cuts effectively, you need to know two things: what resources your court currently has, financial, physical, and human, and what it needs at minimum to function. There are three main strategies for handling cuts. Reduce. Trim small amounts across the board. It's a short-term fix with the hope that funding will bounce back soon. So remake. Reorganize, streamline without cutting services. Think smarter workflows, tech upgrades, and cost-saving substitutions. Remove. Eliminate programs or services entirely. This is a long-term permanent reduction focused on sustainability. So budget shortfalls. Can the court increase revenues? Can you add additional court costs? Can you charge higher user fees? Can you obtain more general revenue? Can you improve collections? Can the court reduce expenditures? Can you cut office supplies? Can you delay computer purchases? Must you lay off personnel? And covering budget shortfalls usually involves a combination of increasing revenues and reducing expenditures. Cover the bullet points. How have you seen revenues increase to cover a budget shortfall? How have you seen the expenditures reduced to cover a budget shortfall? And then you're going to review and adjust regularly. Review your budget at least once a month to see what's working and what's not. As your income, expenses, or goal shift, make the necessary adjustment within your controllables. Staying flexible allows you to stay in control and ensures your budget always reflects your current priorities. So that covers our very high-level budget and case management. We're going to talk a little about the core in the budget and fiscal management in the practice module. And this is one of the, 8 in the practice module that serves as one of these 13 competencies in how they're divided into 3 modules. Okay, so the purpose of the Core Champion Achievement Program is to strengthen our court professionals' knowledge of court management and best practices, provide greater exposure to core curriculum, and provide recognition for attendance and various certificates that participants can use to demonstrate their completion of the core program. Okay. So how to participate. To sign up for the program, you simply need to attend or view a qualified session like this one. You can even view sessions offered at previous conferences. After attending, email the core NACM Net to request a structured response form, or I think we're going to send it out this time to all our registrants. Or you could get it from the conference app when you're in person, but send it to core@nacmnet.org. Name one of the ways presented in this session of how you will design your budget, what steps you will take to draft the budget and present the budget and get final approval, at least 4 sentences. The Core Champion Work Group will review your completed structure response test and will tell you if your responses qualify for core credit. The Core Work Group issues you awards for completing sessions. For award requirements, you can check out the Core website and at nacmcore.org. And after obtaining credit for each of these 13 curriculum, you can apply to be a Core Champion. This requires completion of an application form, writing of a short article that may be published in the Court Express. And after you complete all 13 competencies to obtain the Core Champion Achievement Award, you must write a short article about the benefits you have gained from completing the core and how you intend to use what you have learned in the future. Core work group members will review your article and determine your eligibility for the Core Champion Achievement Award. You will also have an opportunity to have your article published in NACM's Court Express, which we mentioned. Recipients of this award will be formally recognized at the annual conference. So we thank you. That was the close of Justice by the Numbers. We are able to take questions at this time, and we're trying to, I guess we went through that rather quickly.
Thanks, Whitney. We did have a couple of questions that just came up towards the end here, so I didn't want to interrupt you because you had already kind of moved on to the core slides. So if you're able to pull up the chat, you can read them, or I can read them for you, whichever you'd prefer.
I see them. So, Sandra Kirk, what is the duty of the funding authority to raise taxes, et cetera, to support efficient core operations? That's a good question. So they do have a duty. For example, in Clark County, we are increasing sales tax, and that comes to a specific project right now, and we have a law and justice tax. So there is a duty. The best way to approach that is by having those internal conversations with the funding authority to say, hey, we're really needing more court staff, and talk about the needs, talk about ways to increase that with raising sales tax or other opportunities that might be available to you. So another question. What is the best analysis for a court to utilize that shows judges support staff directly related to time to disposition standard? What's the best analysis to court to, you might have to give me some more on that one. I think she has the ability to chat.
Yeah, I don't know. Cassandra, if you can maybe clarify that last one. And then
I think I'm understanding it, and if that could be a great thing you write in your drafting budget in your request. So you could say, before we were short-staffed, our time to disposition has been X, but with increased staff, this is what we propose, or what we will see, or what we are seeing. So giving those numbers with telling your story is the best way to do it in your draft writing proposal. I hope that answers your question.
another one dropped in there.
Okay. How often is it recommended to adjust court mission and visions? You know, we do it maybe every 6 months. We are looking at, are we hitting our missions? Maybe there's something that is coming up. We're seeing a pattern, or maybe you're seeing a pattern of eviction rises in your community, and all of a sudden you have to make a shift, like, okay, it's on our radar. Let's put this in our budget request for next year. Another example for me that I've seen is by using a regression analysis, we are seeing our cases for third-party contested parenting-ships. I don't know what you guys call them in your states. Ours are unified guardianship cases or emergency guardianship. We have seen those numbers continue to rise for 3 years, and we went to the budget council and asked for money based on our regression analysis that shows how this is going to be increasing, and that it's a mandated service that our court has to do. So recommended, I would just, you know what I do? Sometimes I just look at it as often as I need it. And sometimes I'm looking monthly, and I'm just trying to relay as much as information to my court administrator and our judges to have them make the final call. Okay, so the funding authority's duty to fund, where does that emanate from? So it might be a charter within your county. It might be a state mandate. The duty to fund, I know a lot of ours come from mandates. And then you propose those in a sales tax. You can do levies. I think that was kind of a question maybe already answered, but if you have more questions, put them in the chat. And what should be in the executive summary of the budget, your executive summary. So I would put in all of your needs, whether they are funded or not, and continue to tell that story. So I have been telling the same story to our budget staff, all of our needs. We have one position that is a project position, actually two, and I continually report that this is needed for mandated services, that this is needed to ensure we're upholding the Constitution, and my story never changes. So you can do high-level executive summary, but you're always leading with your overall needs. Are security expenditures for IT likely to outspend other conventional types of security like postage, sheriff, and metal detectors? If so, should they not be identified as project fund expenses? That's a good question. A lot of sometimes your security or IT expenses will go into your capital budget and should be separated from your operational budget. So yeah, it might not be a great idea to put them as project because, or you start them as project and try to move them into operational expenses. But mostly your IT, your big purchases like that are going to come from capital funding, which is a separate bucket of money. Okay, are there any other questions? Oh, there are.
Yeah, there's
Roger. For many of us, the budget is under control of the state court administrator's office and trial court administrator. Do you have any suggestions for us managers and supervisors to use storytelling to describe local department needs in a way that our trial court administrators and presiding judge can understand the need and get us funding? So we are not under state control, but there is the process of which you go to the state for your budget requests, and I would just start at the low level and keep moving up. And then I guess keep going to your trial court administrators for them to take that information on how to build those budgets.
right.
I don't know if that entirely answered it, Roger. I'm not too terribly familiar with that process, but I would assume it's similar to how our state biennium runs, and we have to use their forms and continue to be asked every annual and continue to take our stories to trial court administrators.
Great. Well, I don't see any further questions popping in the chat. If we want to wrap up, we can. Whitney, we appreciate your presentation. You did a great job, and this is great information. Someone had asked at the beginning whether or not we'll be sharing the PowerPoint with attendees. And I think when we touch base about how to get the SRT out to people, we'll find out if that's something that's available to us. So with that, if we don't have any other questions.
I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share any of some documents on how to write a story. If you want to just reach out to me and pick my brain, I'd love to do that too.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Whitney, for a great presentation. Everybody have a great day. Bye.